Greetings, guys. Welcome to another episode of CEO Chatter Live. I'm Fancy, the hostess, and we're going to get into it. Tonight's guest is someone who's not only doing impactful work, but someone I genuinely call a friend. Lakeisha Mosley is a mental wellness advocate and the visionary behind the My Mind is My Business conference, where she is creating space for real conversations around the mental and emotional weight we carry while showing up in our lives, careers, and businesses. Her work centers on nervous system regulation, helping people recognize when they're in survival mode and guiding them toward a more grounded, sustainable way of living and working. And this isn't her first time here. Lakeisha has been on CEO Chatter Live before. And every time she shows up, she brings clarity, truth, and the kind of perspectives we don't always slow down enough to hear. So I'm really excited to have her back. Let's welcome Lakeisha Mosley to CEO Chatter Live. And I'm going to bring you in. Greetings, Lakeisha.
Hey, Fancy.
How are you doing?
I am fantastic. How are you?
I'm good. Girl, look, it's Thursday. We're almost at the end of the week. I'm looking
Yes.
forward to I'm looking forward to Friday at 5 o'clock. But until then, I'm doing good. So let's get into things. Lakeisha, my mind is my business is such a powerful statement. What does that phrase mean to you personally, and why was it important to build a conference around it?
So, when we think about our minds, we think about it separately from our businesses. We feel like for some reason we're conditioned or taught that they're two separate entities, but they really are not. So, in order for you to be a successful leader, to run a successful business, to have successful relationships, your mind needs to be a part of whatever you do. Mental health is our foundation for everything. And so, when I was trying to find a name for this. At the time, I had an assistant that kind of played around with the words. And then this guy I was dating at the time, they were like, you keep saying my mind and that's your business. Like, why don't you put those together? And I was like, it's kind of long. But the more that I thought about it, I was like, it makes more sense because my mind is my business. And without my mind functioning the way that it should, my business is not going to.
That makes a lot of sense. And just, I mean, and it is your business, as well. Like it's your personal thing. You're responsible for it. So we have to nurture it the same way we nurture our actual physical businesses.
Right.
So that makes a lot of sense. I like that. So this conference isn't just for entrepreneurs, it's for professionals too. And men are welcome. Why was it important for you to create something this inclusive?
For one, I felt like as Black women, we're always excluded from something. Like there wasn't a space just for us. So when my mind is my business initially started, it was really a space for us. But what I learned was that inclusivity had to be a part of this because sometimes, because of racial disparities, everything we need isn't in our communities. Sadly enough, it's just not in our communities. And so I found that we have some really great allies that are of different races, but also men. We hear a lot about the hatred of like men hate Black women and all these things. But what I found is that men are very supportive of us, especially in safe spaces that are nurturing. Some of them are looking for that. And so for me, it was important to bring everyone together because sometimes as women, we need to hear the man's perspective of how we show up and how we can take care of them and how we can support them. So as it's developed, this is year 7, it's been very, very important to make sure that all races are heard, but also gender as well is heard as well. Because we need the men's perspective on a lot of things too.
I totally agree with that. And it just makes me think about, I don't know. I remember somebody was one time said something like, women have been so empowered that that's why they struggle with dating. But I say that to say the men have to be empowered just as well,
Right.
And so I love that you incorporated that into the event or incorporated them into the event, not that. So um, we don't talk enough about the mental cost of showing up every day, whether in business or in the workplace. What are some of the ways that pressure quietly impacts people?
I think the most way that people don't the most way that it shows up, but it's the least way that people think about is how we relate to one another. You're snappy. you're forgetting things. You are doing work, but it's not like it's routine, if that makes sense. Like it's just so routine. There's like not a lot you're putting into it. Sometimes we don't think that those are things that impact our mental health or that it's just us pushing through. In those times is when we really need to kind of stop and assess, like, hey, what's going on with me? I kind of snapped at this person and they didn't even do anything wrong to me. Or maybe this was a miscommunication of some things. Those are some of the more subtle ways, but sometimes because we are so underrepresented in some spaces and we're not understood, people see that as aggression. People see that as, oh, she's being dismissive or she's being mean or she's being nasty. But sometimes we could just be pushing through and not realizing that we're on the cusp of burnout, or we're on the cusp of like really a whole entire crash out that could be brewing. So we have to look at those kind of subtle signs. I think one of the biggest ones also too, Fancy, is lack of nourishment. If we're skipping meals, we feel like we're not hungry, we're not nourishing our brain, we're not giving our brains the protein and the foods that it needs to kind of nourish. So sometimes we'll skip things because we got to get things done. So those are just like a few things that we should be looking for.
So, but I'm kind of thinking, because I mean, I get everything that you just said, but also just at the very end when you said that about the nourishment, it made me think about, so like when we see people talking about being hangry or whatever, that's okay.
That's
Look,
a
so
real
if y'all
thing.
didn't understand it before, so you focus on nervous system regulation. Can you break that down in a real? Well, actually, I think you just kind of explained to us from what you just said. Those are cues for people to know when they're out of alignment,
Right.
basically. So I'm gonna skip that question. um, well, and this is kind of related to that one too, but how does a dysregulated nervous system affect how we perform, whether that's at work, in leadership, or even in our personal lives?
Oh my gosh, this is a great question. I'm really glad that you asked this question because we have to look at nervous system regulation as the basis. When we say mental health is our foundation, that's truly what it is. But when we look at nervous system, we have to learn how to regulate before strategy. No plan is going to work if your nervous system is dysregulated. Clarity does not come from pushing harder. Think about when you are pushing through. Think about when you are so tasked with so many things to do and your mind is in overload. Nothing really gets done. And if you are leading teams, if you are leading people, then your team isn't getting clear direction from you as well. And then they may or may not complete the task the way that it needs to be completed. For me, regulation comes from being safe, having the space to do that and to be grounded. We have to look at prioritizing our mental and emotional regulation before we do anything like goal setting, before we do planning, before we do any type of execution type work. Because if we don't, Fancy, nothing's gonna work. It just will be all over the place. Like literally when you and I are talking, I'm like, girl, I'm all over the place today. It's a clue for me to say, okay, somewhere you're not regulated. So now you need to go get still and figure out what it is that's causing you to not be in regulation or not be in alignment with what it is.
That makes a lot of sense. And now that we've discussed like the different ways being dysregulated can look, and the difference, from whether just to be in personal or professional situations, what are a few ways people can begin regulating their nervous system even with busy schedules and real life responsibilities?
That is another great question. And you said it earlier, and that's alignment. So sometimes when we are all over the place or when we feel dysregulated, it's really a clue to think about what is it that I'm doing and is it in alignment? That's first and foremost. Because things that are in alignment are not a push. Yes, there may be some pressure as far as like, okay, there may be this fear factor that sometimes show up, but there's not this push, like this kind of regret type that comes across when that happens. But alignment is really key to all of that. And you really have to design your day around what nerves you up, what makes you feel good, what causes you to sometimes get out of regulation. People feel like, it's the soft way. And again, I come from the soft, simple CEO, but it's a soft way, it's a weak way of doing things. But when you know how regulated you are, you can really perform tasks when you need to. So for me, I think you and I were talking about this the other day. I am an early bird. If I have a hard task to do, honey, I better do it in the morning. Because otherwise, if I try to do it later on in the day, it may not get done. And if I'm trying to push through to do it, then it's also probably could be an epic fail for me. So I have to know what times a day that I can do certain tasks, and I also have to know how to start my day. So I start with prayer and devotion every single morning. I journal throughout the day. Sometimes I get up, when my watch says, it's time to stand. Sometimes I may take a few laps around the office building if I'm at work. If I'm working from home, I may make a few laps in my apartment. Like, I just do things that kind of break the monotony up of the day. And we have to learn how to take breaks, schedule breaks. We need to schedule breaks and rest the same way that we schedule those client meetings.
Wow. It's so funny because, when you and I be talking and I'm hearing you say, okay, I got to do this, or girl, I'm walking, or you know what I mean? And now I'm like, because even though we've been talking about regulating the nervous system, I don't think I ever really asked you before, what exactly does that look like? So I can vouch for you when you say, okay, this is how you do things, because I'm always hearing you talk about doing those things.
Yeah.
So you do practice what you preach, y'all, for those who are watching. And then it was something else that I was gonna say. To me, just as you're describing it, it kind of makes me think about like not operating at your highest. Would you agree? Because it sounds like you're, even when you talk about like being in leadership, not giving directions clearly and things like that. Would you say that it is kind of like, operating at a lower version of yourself because
Yes.
you're really operating on E, basically, or close to E?
Yes, that's exactly what it is. We don't think about how we show up as leaders and how that affects our team. That's one of the 5 principles in the Soft Simple CEO framework, is calm execution. So a lot of times we don't operate at that level because we're so nerved up. There's a level of I guess you could say, like, we don't level up because we know that we could perform here, but because we're out of sorts with whatever, we're actually at bare minimum. And for our teams, that's inconsistent. Because one day you up here and you doing 17 different things and it's going great. And then that one day that you don't do whatever that practice is to regulate yourself, now you're operating at a lower level. Your team doesn't know how to adjust to that sometimes because our teams watch us. If you don't take a break, your team ain't gonna take a break. If you don't take lunch, your team not gonna take a lunch. If you don't go on vacation, do all of those things, your team is not going to do that as well. So therefore, now you have confused them, and now they don't perform at a peak level too because they are following the leader.
Wow. Now that's really something to think about, because I know, just for myself personally, I know there are some days I'm like doing 20 things in a day. And then some days, and I think it's more as I get toward the end of the week where it's things kind of become like, I'm doing like maybe 10 things in a day. I never thought about how that could, appear to be inconsistency to my team. So that's really enlightening. Just this whole conversation has been enlightening. But I realized too, we talked a little bit about the conference, but what are some things that you're looking forward to for My Mind is My Business this year?
Oh my goodness, this is year 7. So I'm super excited about just 7, the year of completion, the number of completion. And I feel like this year we've up leveled. We've brought in some really big sponsors like Swagger, May Simpler, Neurovana Calm, even Black Girl Vitamin, brought them in. It was super excited about that. we're focusing more so on the intersection, the true intersection of mental health and business. Before, we focused a lot on mental health, but through feedback, people were like, okay, I got that, but how do I show up when I'm burnt out in my business? How do I scale my business if I live with a mental health condition? And that's me. I can relate to that. So we brought in some of those pieces, which I think people will really love to talk about. You know, how you made the plan. Now, how do you execute it as a leader? In whatever setting it is. So I'm super excited about that. And we're adding a brunch this year where we are honoring, and you are one of my honorees, which I'm so excited about, totally, because I've seen how you have championed mental health. And so it's just really a way for us to give back to those that we've seen, number one, who supported us, but as a part of a community where a lot of times people shy away from. People, it's taboo to say you support mental health in the way that you supported mental health and the other honorees have supported mental health. And so we're just excited to honor y'all this year to say, listen, these are some people you need to be following, and you need to be championing your own communities to do the same thing when it comes to mental health. Because when we stop separating mental health and we make it inclusive in every single thing that we do, I think we will start to see a lot better results with our teams, with ourselves, in our personal and business lives.
Wow. Excuse me. But I love that because, again, like we talked about, you know, our mind, that's the command center right there. So, right. And I think we oftentimes don't think about that and how it is intertwined with everything. Right. But just from this conversation, like, it has me rethinking so many things now. I'm like, okay, I gotta work on this. And I don't want to overwhelm myself, so I'm not gonna do that. And some of the things you mentioned, I'm already kind of doing, you know, just making certain that I'm taking the breaks throughout the day. Right. And I would almost feel kind of guilty, but now I'm realizing, like, hey, that's something that you need to be doing for yourself. Yes. Like, that's you nurturing yourself. So right. I'm glad to hear that. So yes. Before we wrap up, is there anything else that you like to include that we didn't get to touch on? Or
you said something very key just now, Fancy, and that's about how, you know, you have to shape your business. I want us to look at success as something that can be supported while we are remaining sane. We have to learn how to do that. Success must be designed around real energy, real life, and real capacity. We have to start rejecting this hustle-based model that we've grew up with, we've been taught, that requires constant output and emotional depletion. That has to stop. We got to stop that. Our businesses should be built to support us, not drain us. And the more that we get into that, it starts with listening to ourselves, and then we begin to challenge these habits of overriding our own intuition. Because if we listen to us, we won't lead ourselves wrong. We have to learn how to self-trust, but also ignoring limits, you know, and saying yes out of pressure. So I really, really feel this because I struggle with this. You were very supportive of me back in November when I had that breakdown. And this is where this framework completely came from. I had to sit with, why am I here again? What is happening with me? And it really took me looking at all of the things that I was doing and learning that I need to start choosing alignment over approval. Because I'm going to tell you no in a heartbeat, honey. No. I got to take care of me. So I really want us to focus on us more so and learn how to lead with intention and not urgency.
I get that. And just the business, when you said our businesses should not drain us, like, I think that was a very impactful message. Like, if that's not a wake-up call for so many of us, because I know for me personally, things be draining, but I still love it, but right. I need to figure out a system where it's not draining. Like, right. So yeah, I got to make some changes. But before we wrap up, where can our viewers connect with you? And guys, also, I have the ticket link if you like to purchase tickets for My Mind is My Business. It's been scrolling across the bottom of the screen. But where can they connect with you, Lakeisha?
So my playground is Instagram. I know most people you're not on LinkedIn. I am on LinkedIn, but I don't play over there. I play on Instagram. as Lakeisha M. Mosley. I'm DM friendly. Jump in my DMs. I respond. Unless you type a keyword, I'm responding to my DMs. So you can definitely connect with me there.
Okay. Well, guys, we're going to be in Houston next month, 22nd through the 24th. I'm excited. As she said, I'm being honored. I'm excited
Yes.
about that. And we will be just doing several other things surrounding My Mind is My Business conference. So just stay tuned and, keep up with us for the updates. So thank you so much, Lakeisha, and you all have a good evening.
Thank you.